Welcome to ST World Affair. My guest today, Matt Hammer, is the founder and CEO of nonprofit Innovate Public Schools. Previously, Matt was the executive director of People Acting in Community Together PACT, where he led the effort to make Santa Clara County the first county in the country to provide access to health insurance to allow for low-income children, and launched the highest performing public schools in the LM Rock School District, and built one of the only large public school choice movement in the country, initiated and driven by low-income parents. Matt is also Senior Fellow of the American Leadership Forum, Silicon Valley. Matt, welcome to the show.
Great, thank you so much, Sanjeev.
You are founder of Innovate Public School. Can you explain what exactly it is? This is not a traditional school we are talking about. What exactly your goals and missions are?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit organization working in the Bay Area, really trying to build a big movement in the Bay Area for amazing, what we call world-class public schools for all kids, with a particular focus on low-income children around the Bay Area. Really, it comes out of lots of people's experience, including my own. I grew up here in the Valley, grew up in San Jose, and the experience of just public schools having very different expectations for different kinds of kids. So I went to a schools in San Jose Unified School District, and it was clear that for me, the school staff expected me as sort of upper middle class white guy, that I was going to be getting onto a college path, made sure that I was getting the right courses to get into college, and pushed me hard, whereas a lot of my classmates who are from immigrant families from Vietnam and from Mexico, that the school staff didn't seem to have the same expectations about those kids, didn't really send the message that they were really college material. And so what that led to, not so surprisingly, is really different outcomes for different kinds of kids. So there were, in my graduating class from Abraham Lincoln High School, way back many decades ago, there was just 5% of us that went right on to four-year universities. The vast majority of kids didn't go on to college. And so really what Innovate is about more than anything is just the incredible promise of public education. We know that it's like the foundation of the American dream, and we know that when it works, it can be like an incredible equalizer in this country and can open up incredible doors of opportunity for so many kids. You see that when you talk to a kindergartner, Sanjeev. You just know that this child in front of you has like limitless potential, often far beyond the capacity of the adult to even really imagine where this child might end up. But the unfortunate reality for so many families right now is that rather than their local public school being a place that's advancing their kid toward a life of a lot of opportunity, the kids are falling behind every year, and the opportunities, the incredible opportunities in Silicon Valley and the greater Bay Area are often not an opportunity for these kids.
So when we talk about low income, I think that relates very well with Silicon Valley, where we are right now. And I was just talking with one of the guests just a few minutes ago. In San Francisco, the average income you need is like $105,000 per year. And that too, it's like you can barely make your ends meet.
That's right.
So, and it's obvious that Silicon Valley is a kind of a hub for immigrants. How do you help low-income family, the students who is coming from low-income family? What are your three-prongs approach? Kind of, when I read about your in your website, and it was very interesting that you have this three-prong approach where you help our community. How is that?
Yeah, so basically the three things that we do, Sanjeev. So the first is we help parents, particularly low-income parents, but not entirely, to get involved as a group, as an organization that can help to push for the changes that they think are needed. And so as an example, like right now in San Jose, we're working with a group of parents who have kids in special needs, kids with special needs, special education, who've been very concerned about the quality of special education in San Jose. And so we're helping them to learn about the issue, form an organization, work together, not as sort of lone rangers on their own. And they're going to be starting to look for solutions that they can then work with the district on, looking at best practices around the country and how we can implement implement those in San Jose. So that's one prong as we work with families to help them get organized, because you can't make change happen if you're on your own. And then the second piece is around data and policy work. So we've got a team of researchers and data analysts that work with families to put the good research together and to help parents really understand what are the best schools for their kinds of kids, what are the worst schools in the area for their kinds of kids, and what really spotlighting the elements of the best schools so that we can learn from that and then advocate for more of what's really working well. And then the third piece of the program is around trying to launch many new high-performing schools. And so we have a school development team that runs what we call our Startup Schools Fellowship. So it's a program for people who want to launch new schools. They go through it for a year, get intensive support from some people on our team who've launched and run amazing public schools around the country. And so these school leaders get lots of support to design and then launch these new extraordinary public schools. And so those are the three basic elements. And these new schools that we're helping to launch, they're both charter schools, which are public schools, tuition free, that are particularly often focused on low-income families, but then also working with school districts. So we've worked with a bunch of school districts in the area, Mountain View and Santa Clara and a number of others, helping them to redesign their lowest performing schools.
Let's talk about data. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I myself, I have an engineering background, so I like working with data.
Yep.
What exactly you do with data? How do you get this data? I mean, can you work with an example? I mean, how does your data helps to build a better community?
Yeah, so maybe the best example of that would be we had some parents that we were working with in Redwood City. They were very concerned about the low quality of education that their kids were receiving. One of the dads who approached us, I'll call him Joe, was concerned that his kindergartner was in the school with super low expectations. That the kindergarten teacher said that the expectation for his kindergartner was to learn 25 new words the whole kindergarten year. And he had come from Central America where much higher expectations. So Sanjeev, we find this all the time is families coming from other countries, often developing countries, who expect that they're going to receive a much better education here and find that back home their kids they received a much more rigorous education than they get here. So what we did in Redwood City was we compiled some research, and what it showed was that among the two counties, Santa Clara and San Mateo County, among the 50 school districts in those two counties, that actually Redwood City had about, I believe it was 6 of the very lowest performing schools in that very large area of the Bay Area. And parents didn't know that before. They knew that their schools had some problems. They had no idea that they were among the very worst in all of Silicon Valley. So they used that data that was very easy for them to understand, showed it to public officials, to school board members, to superintendent, and that got people's attention, that then sort of laid the groundwork for them to then be pushing for much better schools.
Okay. So one of the interesting things I found out with this data, which we are talking right now, is that students with Asian background, students of the color, and when you compare against white students, and then you compare Asian students and Latino students against African American students, there are some obvious conclusions you can make out of that data. Can you just go through that?
Yeah, maybe if we, so on this graph that you see, what this basically shows you is these are the most recent test scores in math on the new state test. And on the left side are scores for low-income kids, and on the right side are the non-low-income kids by the various ethnicities. And yeah, what you see is that low-income African-American kids, only 11% of those kids are proficient in math, versus at the top are non-low-income Asian kids at 87%. And one of the dynamics in California that makes it different than a lot of other states is just the traditional very low level of funding in low-income communities. And so in a place like right here in Mountain View, the high school district Mountain View Los Altos High School District, might be spending up to 50% more money per child than a neighboring district or a close by district like Redwood City. And so when that happens over time, it's, you know, more kids in a classroom, teachers aren't getting paid as well. So in a place like Redwood City, they're always worried about teachers who get some experience in their third, fourth, fifth year and start to really know how to do their job well, can be easily picked off by a neighboring district that can pay them right off the bat $20,000 more, literally, to teach the same class. And so that's one of the problems, is that some low-income kids find themselves in districts that are really underfunded.
Let's look at the bigger picture. We are right now sitting in the heart of Silicon Valley. 5 miles, a couple of miles from here, we have Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft. Drive 50 miles, Facebook. And it's kind of, and this is the question I talk with my friends and family also, and my colleagues also, that it's very hard for me to comprehend that our public school in Silicon Valley, or let's say in California, when you compare against other states, let's say Massachusetts, it's nowhere near. And then sure, some of the good public school districts like Palo Alto, Cupertino, Fremont Mission, they are fair. I mean, but it's not easy to get in because they are very expensive as far as the living over there. Why is California education, the public school education, is not as competitive or better than other states? Although, especially Silicon Valley, let's just focus on Silicon Valley, where we have everything. The entire world look up to this 100 miles of area, right? And yet our public school, we have not done any good job.
Well, the amazing thing, right, about the Bay Area is just the diversity, and so that you've got some of the best public schools in the country are here in Silicon Valley, and there's also some of the very worst in the state are here in Silicon Valley. And so I would say, like, compared to a place like Massachusetts, one thing is what I'd mentioned before, just about the real low funding for public schools, particularly in low-income districts. They're getting not nearly enough money to be able to provide a world-class education. And then also those states. So a state like Massachusetts has done a lot of really innovative things. When schools, for instance, are very low performing in Massachusetts, there's a possibility of transforming those schools where districts can actually close the school down, reopen it with much better practices. And so the worst schools in Massachusetts have got a real chance. The kids in those neighborhoods have a chance of, you know, a new program coming in, new staff who are really ready through a new public district school to do, you know, to put a much more effective organization together. Now there are some amazing examples of district schools in a place like San Francisco Unified. They've got this extraordinary school, Lafayette Elementary School, that is serving a really diverse population, white, Asian, Latino, African American kids, a sizable special education population, and they have figured out over the years how to provide just a top-notch education to really every kind of kid at their school, and just huge congratulations. People should check out that school. That could be a model for so many other schools.
Just a quick question: how do parents get involved with your Innovate Public School? How do they get involved?
So sometimes parents seek us out that are concerned about what's going on in their neighborhood school, and they find us on the website, or they have a friend who's involved and they contact us. And then other times we go out and actively find people. So these parents in Redwood City, as they're starting to organize to try to improve things in Redwood City, they would tell our staff, you know, you really ought to go talk to these 3 other parents who also could be really strong parent leaders. And so our staff would go out and talk with them, and then it grows through relationships. And so people can check out our website, innovateschools.org, if they want to get in contact with us. We're always looking for those gems that are really in any neighborhood, any school, who want to do something to try to improve things.
Matt, fantastic. I wish we had more time. And I think what you are doing is great for the society, no doubt about it. And thanks for coming down here.
Thanks so much, Sanjeev. Appreciate it.
All right.